أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع ذنوبنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبو القاسم محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. صلوات على محمد وأهل Sharia, the concept of Sharia, is arguably one of the most misunderstood concepts by both non-Muslims and Muslims alike. Okay, so what is this Sharia? Now, linguistically, one of the origins of the term Sharia was simply a path. Okay, a means to something, a path to something. And quite possibly, it seems, it was used in reference to a path towards water. Okay, so the path is something very, very important. And particularly you can imagine in an Arab context, a path to water is something of immense value. So the notion of Sharia and its linguistic origins has this type of association, right, of being a means to something, a means to something of such value that life itself depends upon it. Now, yeah, we all depend upon water here and now, but sometimes water is the last thing we want to see because it's pouring down constantly. Okay, although alhamdulillah this year has been relatively dry so far. But you can imagine the power of this imagery in the minds, okay, of the Arabs. Okay, so Sharia, literally a path, associated with a path towards water. All right, a means to something. Okay, now Sharia as we understand it today, okay, within its usage, within the, if you like, the ulum al-Islami, tends to be used in one of two ways. Okay, one is a more general sense, the other is a more specific sense. Sometimes we use the word Sharia to talk about the whole body of Islamic teachings. Okay, composing of at least loosely three elements. First element being the belief and doctrines of Islam. Okay, second element being the ethics of Islam. Okay, and here this would then include the virtue ethics and the mystical ethics. All right. The third element would be the ahkam, the regulations of Islam. All right, and very, very loosely, you can categorize more or less all of the disciplines related to the Islamic sciences within these three subdivisions, if you like. Those which relate to doctrine, those which relate to ethics, and those which are relating to normativity. Okay, and ahkam in particularly. All right. So sometimes we find in the literature Sharia means this whole body. All right, of theology, of mysticism, of practice, of doctrine, of the different approaches, Sharia, the entirety of the teachings. This isn't the first sense of Sharia that comes to our mind, but sometimes you'll see Sharia used in this way. Okay, normally when we hear the term Sharia, we associate it with a more specific understanding, less general. Okay, and that was the third of those three categories, and that is the ahkam. Normally we associate the term Sharia, more often than not, with this system of regulative instructions. Okay, these ahkam al-Sharia. All right, these precepts which the jurists perceive to be in the knowledge of God, intending to regulate all aspects of human life. All right, the interpersonal relations, okay, and the relations between creation and creator. Ahkam al-Sharia. You know very, very well what I'm talking about. All right, so Sharia is normally associated with this. Yeah, okay, this ideal system in the knowledge of God. All right, yeah, which the fuqaha perceive to regulate every aspect of human life. All right, now I'm emphasizing in the knowledge of God because what we have, what the fuqaha have, in that sense is not Sharia. Okay, it's an interpretation of Sharia, which we refer to as fiqh. All right, so there's a distance between Sharia as being this regulative framework in the knowledge of God, okay, and fiqh, yeah, the interpretive effort of understanding that system through the sources of Sharia. Now, either way, whichever sense we look at it, this is meant to be a means. All right, these regulations, okay, both in their ideal sense, in the knowledge of God, and those which are the product of the exertion of the jurists, which has come about after, evolved through time, and is the product of many people dedicating their lives and their thought, all right, to this process. It's intended as a means, right? It retains that sense of Sharia in its linguistic sense, all right, as wishing to take us to something. All right, so we have this regulative framework, which is a path. Yeah, we're saying that there's this level of interpretation which has gone on, but fundamentally it's a path. Okay, it's not a path to a dead end. Yeah, it's not a path to a brick wall. This would be purposeless. This would have no value. No. The Sharia is intended, okay, to be something which takes us somewhere. All right? This system of regulation, the majority of it, we refer to as takalif. Yeah, taklif ash-shar. What's this? What do we mean by takalif? Taklif. Okay, most here are from a sort of Southeast Asian origin. All right, and in the Arabic, the way the theologians have understood this notion of taklif, it is very close to the sense we have in Urdu. It's something burdensome. Okay, by definition. Yeah, for the mutakallimun, the classical Muslim theologians say, yes, this taklif which comes from God is something burdensome. Okay, by its very nature. Okay, it's something which imposes mushakkaka and kulfa. All right, something, and we can appreciate that people are smiling. So yeah, waking up for Fajr right now is not too bad, 6:30 a.m. It's okay, we can handle it. In the summer, is it the same? Okay, when the hot water's not working, we can appreciate why people perceived these things as being burdensome. But they must have value, these burdens which are being imposed in this vision of Sharia. Burdens which are being imposed upon humankind from God. Okay, we have to ask what type of God wants to impose something upon us? Yeah, what type of God wants to subjugate us, okay, to difficulty, to burden? It would be a dictator of a God. It would be a criminal of a God if there was no value in this imposition. If there was no purpose in this imposition. If it wasn't intending to take us somewhere. Okay, and very, very clearly, okay, in the conception of both the fuqaha and the theologians, all right, the Sharia is intended, this practice, observance of these regulations, are intended to take us somewhere. There's benefit in them for humankind, not for God. How can it be for God? Because God is needless. Okay, we are the dependent. As we said yesterday, everything relies upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So God-centered reality. Okay, the existential nature of the world is dependent upon God. In every sense. Okay, everything else is needy except Allah. هُوَ الْغَنِي وَأَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ. Right, He is the needless, you are the needy, you are the dependent. So the value in observing this takalif must be for us. Okay, otherwise it would undermine God's needlessness. Okay, there's value in it for us. What is this value? Where is it taking us to? The 11th Imam, salawatullahi wassalamu alayhi, is reported to have said, فَلَمَّا فَرَضَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْفَرَائِضِ. Okay, when the obligatory acts were made obligatory upon you, or when the duties were made duties upon you. Okay, لَمْ يُفْرِضْ ذَلِكَ لِحَاجَةٍ مِّن. This wasn't done for any need from these obligations from God's side. And it's quite clear and obvious with our conception of God. It can't be for any need from God. So why was it? The Imam says, بَلْ بِرَحْمَةٍ. Says these obligations were imposed, these duties were, you were called to fulfill these duties out of His rahmah, out of His mercy. Okay, what is mercy and what is rahmah? Okay, this is an aspect of God's unqualified giving. Mercy doesn't capture it, to me anyway. Yeah, we've got experts in Arabic who are far, far more proficient in Arabic than me in the crowd. Okay, but rahmah, to me, isn't encapsulated by the concept of mercy. Okay, mercy seems, in the English language, seems to be when somebody's got a right over you and they let you off. One of the senses of mercy, anyway. Yeah, a king is merciful against, somebody who tried to take his kingdom and failed. Yeah? Okay, this is not the case with the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, it's unqualified giving. Yeah, at least this is the sense which Allama Tabai points to. So this regulative system which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, is conceived of giving to us, okay, has given us these duties or asked us to fulfill these duties. It's not for any need in God. Okay, rather, according to the Imam, it is through God's mercy. It is through His rahmah. It's because of His unbounded desire to give. So there's value in it for us. What is this value? For the theologians, okay, in the hadith literature we find this type of concept that is rahmah. This is God's rahmah that He's asked us to do these things. He's given us this taklif. All right, because it's not just if somebody's going to give you a burden and you don't get anything out of it. So this is criminal act. It becomes dhulm. Right? If somebody's going to impose difficulty upon you, okay, and there's no reason why they're imposing that difficulty, and there's no value in that difficulty, this is dhulm. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from dhulm. He's needless. Okay, He's knowing, He's wise, yet He gives us these burdens. What are they for? Okay, the Imam said rahmah. The theologians say lutf. Okay, the theologians say these takalif are some. All right, these duties, these scriptural responsibilities. Okay, these are altafun fi takalif al-aqliya. Say these are a divine grace. They are a form of divine assistance to help you achieve that which humankind would aspire to anyway. These duties, this regulative framework, is there to help us fulfill that divine potential within us. Very, very simply, it's there to help us move towards becoming God-centered. It's there to help us move towards becoming godly. It's there to help us move to becoming goodly. Even if we look at those devotional aspects of this regulation, sometimes we have this concern. We say, yeah, we can see why some things are for us. The Sharia is asking us, to behave like this between husband and wife. Okay, treat your children like this. Yeah, this is to, maybe it's for allowing for the appropriate atmosphere within a family. It's to create compassion within a family. We can see very, very easily why God might be asking us to live in this particular way. But what about the devotional acts? Those purely devotional acts. Are they for God? Why do we do them? Where's the value in these devotional acts of ibadah? Look, even these devotional acts of ibadah, which, if you like, these are the core of religious teachings. Okay, these are the core of religious teaching, and especially if we're comparing it, as we did yesterday in the discussion, with sort of the system which gives us secular ethics. Say the sharp distinction is you've got these acts of devotion in religious tradition. What are they all about? Why does Allah want me to stand and worship Him? He's needless. So let's look at this concept of ibadah a little bit closer, right? To try to understand the value, not the value for God. The value is all for us. All for us. It can't be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because as we said, huwa al-ghani. Okay, so look at the concept of ibadah, fundamental religious concept. We have no doubt about it. Okay, to the point the Quran says, Ma khalaqtul jinna wal insa. I haven't created humankind and jinns except liya'budun. Except that they be devoted to me, or they worship me, or they serve me. However, we're going to come to understand this concept of ibadah. Now, if we flip back to the fuqaha, how did they understand ibadah? How did they understand this concept of worship? All right, we see that this has been a major debate actually. We see through history that different fuqaha have had slightly different understandings of what does it mean to categorize an act as ibadah. Okay, as devotional. All right, and one of the most sort of inclusive definitions they've offered is by contrasting two types of ibadah. Okay? Ibadah bima'na al-'am and ibadah bima'na al-khas. Ibadah in a general sense and ibadah in a specific sense. So ibadah in its general sense is any wholesome act which we're doing with a consciousness of God. As we know, everything can be ibadah. This is central to the Muslim worldview. All right? That there is no necessary distinction between the profane and the divine, the secular and the divine. Not everything is potentially beautiful. And we saw how in the words of Imam Hussein, salamullahi alayhi, yesterday, he saw everything as a means of introducing God to him. All right, so whether it's cleaning the mosque, whether it's picking up litter from the street, all of these things, wholesome acts when done with the consciousness of God, serving people, healing people, all of these things can be ibadah. All right, this is ibadah in its general sense. Okay, because I could clean the mosque without having any consciousness of God and I would have still done the job. All right, I could save a life without any consciousness of God and have still achieved, the objective of my act. This is ibadah in its general sense. Okay, it's any wholesome act which is done with a consciousness of God. Now, the ibadah which we're talking about in fiqh, core devotional acts, according to these fuqaha, was those acts which require a specific intention for the fulfillment of that act. Okay, so this is the ibadah bima'na al-khas, the ibadah in the specific sense. Okay, and you're all going to catch what I'm saying in a moment. Yeah, saying these are those acts which need a niyyah. Okay, which need a specific intention for them to be sound. All right, and since kids we've been brought up saying that when you pray salat, you have to have the right intention. Okay, I was taught by Urdu teacher, say qurbatan ilallah. Okay, there's no salat, there's no namaz unless it's with intention. Okay, there's no fasting unless it's with intention. Many a times as a university student, I might have slept through most of the day. Okay, you wake up halfway through the day. Have I been fasting? Not until I make the intention. According to the Sharia, you can commence your fast. Later on in the day. If it's not an obligatory fast, but it doesn't become a fast. It doesn't become a fast until I make that intention. The salat doesn't become the act of ibadah until it has that intention. So the devotional acts, ibadah, according to these fuqaha, are something which requires a specific intention, for it to be a sound, complete act. Right. But what is that intention? Qurbatan ilallah. Uqast al-qurba. More accurately. And is this intention of qurba? What does this mean? We've grown up with this stuff. Have we ever, do we think about what does this mean? Okay, sometimes we would translate it as for the sake of God. I'm doing this act for the sake of God. Well, we've just stated that Allah doesn't need it. So is it for the sake of God? It can't be for the sake of God. All right, so let's look at the term a little closer. Qurbatan ilallah or qasd al-qurba. What does it mean? We can say, okay, literally it's saying, so I get nearer to God. But God doesn't have place. God is beyond place. So what is this intention which we require for these devotional acts? It seems to me we can understand this intention if we understand it as an intention to move not towards God, but towards God's qualities. We can understand the necessary qualification of ibadah, this intention, as being the performance of an act through which we become more godly. We become closer to God's beautiful qualities. We become more God-centered. Okay, so we see this ibadah. Okay, this ibadah becomes a means. And this ibadah in its narrow sense, okay, is only valid according to the fuqaha if it has this intention. That we seek to approach God's qualities. We seek to become more God-centered through them. Where's the value? Because this is what we've been talking about, yes? Where's the value in our Islam? Where's the value in our Sharia? We said Sharia is a path to something. Ibadah then becomes a means towards godliness. Let's look a little closer. And if we take the example of Salat, okay, this Amud ad-Din, a purely devotional act. Okay, we could say, yes, Salat al-Jama'ah and these things has some social significance, okay? But if we just focus on just the individual prayer for now, what's it all about? Okay, let's just look a little closer. Look to understand the value of the prayer. Sometimes we need to go beyond the formal considerations. What makes a salat sound? What makes a salat one which is purposeful, which has value, which is actually taking me somewhere? We know very, very well that there's conditions for salat. Okay, and the formal conditions for salat, we mentioned one of them. Okay, this qasd al-qurba. Okay, but maybe many of us have never thought of it beyond for the sake of God and for becoming closer to God. Maybe, yeah? Okay, so we know this is one of those formal conditions. Other conditions stand like this, don't stand like this, for example. Okay, or bow. Okay, pray like this. There are these arkan. You need to have these constituent elements. Formal conditions for prayer. Formal conditions for fiqhi validity. But do these tell us the value? Do these point to the value of following this path? Look, to recognize the value in these devotional activities, sometimes we need to look beyond. We need to look a little bit deeper. And we get some beautiful insights, in the spiritual and mystical literature of Islam when they talk about the shurut al-batina. Okay, when they talk about the internal conditions for the validity of acts. All right, the conditions for the validity of making act purposeful, of giving it value. When it comes to salat, we see two key shurut al-batina. All right, we see two key conditions which arguably there's so much more evidence for through the hadith and the Quran than the vast majority of all of the formal conditions which we're familiar with. Okay, but we rarely get the opportunity to discuss. All right, and these are very, very simply humility, khushu', okay, and hudur al-qalb, the presence of heart. All right, saying without these two qualities, we lack a purposeful prayer. Okay, we might have a formally valid prayer, but we don't necessarily have a prayer which is taking us on that journey. okay, towards godliness and goodliness. Okay, so just picking up one of these conditions. Right, we have the condition of hadur al-qalb, the presence of heart or consciousness. And it seems so central to the philosophy of salat. And through a understanding of this condition, we can see how Sharia is meant to take us somewhere. It's meant to move us in this direction of godliness and goodliness. So look at salat. The Quran says, Aqimu salatu li dhikri. The Quran says, establish prayer for my remembrance. Dhikr being contrasted in the Quran with ghafla. Okay, dhikr, a state of attentiveness, a state of consciousness. Elsewhere the Quran says, La tukum min al-ghafilin. Don't be of those people who are inattentive, who are oblivious. This is in reference to God. Okay? Aqimu salatu li dhikri. Establish prayer for my remembrance, Allah is saying. Okay, for my consciousness, as we were talking about yesterday. Yeah, to achieve God-centeredness. Elsewhere the Quran says, how often do we pray and we're oblivious to what we're doing? This is, this is something quite normal. Zero consciousness in prayer is something which is not unimaginable for most of us. I can speak for myself. I shouldn't impose these things on others. Yeah? It's quite normal to have my mind drifting. Okay, when I pray, unfortunately for me, the Quran says, La taqrabu salat wa antum sukara. It says, don't even approach prayer, okay, while you're heedless. Yeah, now this is understood as being first and foremost revealed in the context of the Muslims before alcohol was banned. Okay, to say don't approach prayer while you're intoxicated. Yeah, but we can, the Quran has multiple levels of meaning, as we're all well aware. Okay, yeah, and how many of us are heedless when we go to our prayer and we've never sipped alcohol in our life? Yeah, and we know the Quran is pointing to this question of consciousness in prayer by the rest of what comes in the verse. It says, Hatta ta'lamu ma taqulun. Right, don't come even close to prayer, okay, until you know what you're saying. Yeah, because what value does it have for me to say, Ihdina as-siratul mustaqim, when my mind's on the football match, or when my mind's on what I'm going to say in this lecture? Okay, what has it given me? Look, salat is pure spiritual exercise. Okay, and in this sense, it's this simple struggle of a formal short period of time where we're trying to maintain this presence of heart, this hudur al-qalb, and this consciousness of God. Because otherwise it's just lip service. It's just moving. Okay, it's not like the other ibadat. Okay, that's why it's such an important example with the overall argument that I'm trying to make. It's not like the other ibadat. In the other ibadat, fasting, even if I'm not attentive to God, even if I'm not God-centered, I can still get value. Look, the simple act of restraint, okay, does something to me. Okay, simply, okay, not eating, not drinking, not doing X, Y, and Z for a period of time has an impact, whether I was attentive to God or not. Okay? Zakat and khums, okay, even if I'm unattentive to God, okay, giving of something I love and I'm attached to has an impact, because I'm attached to it. Yeah, it's shaping me. It has the potential to impact my growth towards godliness and goodliness without being attentive to God. Hajj, okay, those struggles, the daily actions, the toils, the turmoil, okay, the sitting in Arafah, the walking between Safa and Marwa, even if I'm inattentive to God, simply the struggle has the potential to have an impact on me in terms of my possible growth. Salat is not the case. Salat, if I'm moving my lips, saying something, and not attentive, not conscious of God in what I say, I may as well be sleep talking. It has no other impact to stand and bow and prostrate. Okay? Unless there's consciousness of God. It's pure spiritual exercise. Right? Now, we have to understand, okay, so, in this spiritual exercise is the value. How? We say, okay, we take a small amount of time from our day, okay, to exercise ourselves, because my mind keeps wandering. Okay, so when I realize it's wandered, what I ought to be doing is remembering that this consciousness of heart, this presence of heart, is a fundamental condition for making this salat worthwhile. So I need to bring it back. Okay, my mind wanders. I need to bring it back. Okay, it's a form of spiritual training. Okay, where it's established to give me a period of time for God's remembrance, for God's consciousness. Okay, lidhikri, to be God-centered, God-focused for that small amount of time. But the value doesn't end there. Look, it's like when some of us go to the gym. All right? Some may be going to the gym to train. They're going for their exercise. They're going for the development. But are they going to increase their strength simply for the gym? No. They're training to take that health and fitness with them outside. Yeah? Even the guys who are just doing it to show off. All right? And this is another one of these identity crises that we've got right now. Yeah? If we spin it back on brand and stuff that we were talking about yesterday. Yeah, but of course, training for the sake of health is something very, very noble, something I need to take more seriously personally. Okay, but look, when we're training in a gym, okay, the exercise that you're conducting there is not for the sake of the gym. I think everybody would agree. It's so we can take that health and fitness with us outside. Likewise in salat. Look, this attempt, I'm saying attempt because it's genuinely difficult. This attempt to achieve consciousness of God, to have the presence of heart during salat, is a means to take that consciousness with me outside. Okay? I'm training myself to become God-centered. As soon as I can take that God-centeredness with me into everything else I do, I automatically become godly. I automatically become goodly. By taking this consciousness of God, this God-centeredness into everything else that I do. Then we have a salat. Which is like the one described in the Quran where it says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Surely salat, it's not for God's need. It's not because He just wants us to waste some of our day. No. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salat is that thing which repels corruption and vice. Salat is that thing which ought to be making us more moral people. You see the link? It's an effort towards becoming God-centered, which is intended to make us more godly. As simple as that. We have a tradition attributed to the Prophet, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, which says the one whose prayer doesn't repel corruption and vice, lam tuzid minhu, he doesn't receive anything min Allah. Lam tazid min Allah, he gets nothing in the way of God, illa bu'adan, except more distance. My gosh. You know, the empty ritual performance of devotion. Yeah, this hadith is suggesting, okay, that the empty performance of ritual, which doesn't move us towards becoming more moral, has done nothing but moved us more away from God. This is what I meant yesterday when I said, if our Sharia isn't making us a better person, it's an idol. Right? This tradition of the Prophet is pointing to this very, very clearly. saying if my salat isn't making me a better person, it's giving me nothing in the way of God except more distance. We see this Sharia, this regulative system which we aspire to observe, is not for God's sake, it's for our sake. Okay? If this observance of these rituals, even the devotions, and especially the devotional ones, is not moving us towards godliness and goodliness, it has no value. And we have to reassess our approach to the core of this religious teaching. Okay, because it seems to me that this is what we have unique from religion. Okay, to build your personality in a relationship with God. Aqimus salatu lidhikri. Establish prayer for my remembrance. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salat repels moral corruption and vice. Okay, it's a spiritual morality. Islam's is a spiritual morality. And this pursuit of the moral, pursuit of the good, built on a foundation of one's God-centeredness, relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is epitomized in Hussein ibn Ali, salamullahi alayhi. And I'll just end by mentioning words attributed to Imam Hussein, which were actually read in the beautiful Maqtal recitation yesterday. Okay, in his response, in the Imam's response to the letters of the Kufans, okay, calling him, okay, to come to modern day Iraq. Okay, there was a number of exchanges, and according to the reports, yeah, there was a number of exchanges, and maybe possibly a couple of letters which went back from Imam Hussein, okay, to the people of Kufa, okay, telling them that yeah, we've sent Muslim ibn Aqil, and if he verifies what you say be true, then yeah, we'll come and fulfill our responsibilities towards the good. All right, towards godliness and goodliness. And at the end of one of these letters attributed to the Imam, Hussein ibn Ali says, "Fali umri," by my life. Such emphasis. Okay, by my life. Okay, mal imam illa al-hakim bil kitab. The Imam is nothing but one who judges in accordance with the book. Al-Qa'im bil-Qist, somebody who is establishing justice. Okay, establishing that which is moral. Okay, somebody who's in pursuit of the good. Okay, Ad-Da'in bidin al-Haq, somebody who observes the ways of truth. Okay, somebody who observes the rightful religion. To me, that's the rightful religion. Okay, we can interpret this as a big discussion. What do we mean by deen and da'in and deen? The way it's used in different senses. But he observes the ways of truth. These are moral characteristics. This is moral, establishing justice, seeking good, standing for truth. How? Al-habisa nafsuhu ala dhatillah. Through dedicating his soul to the essence of God. God-centeredness as a means to becoming godly. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
We have some time for questions from either side. If there are any questions from either the sisters or the brothers.
Welcome, salam.
Thank you for your speech. The question that I have is, my understanding would therefore be that it's obviously the act of remembering Allah, the spirituality of Salah, that's the much more important part of namaz. So why do you think it is that we have so many prescribed ways of the way that we have to do it, and why do you think there are so many rules attached to how we have to pray and things which perhaps invalidate your namaz? If actually you've gained something spiritually from it, then shouldn't that still be something that's accepted rather than being told that because you didn't do it this specific way, then it's invalid?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very important question and not a straightforward one to answer. Okay, why has fiqh, okay, dominated ethics and spirituality in the Muslim discourse? Yeah, if I'm rephrasing your question, okay? Yeah, of course there is extensive literature, emphasizing submissiveness as being central to salat, okay, as humility being central to salat, consciousness of God being central to salat. All right, these things are undoubtedly there, yeah, and this type of discourse for all of the ibadat. All right, okay, but the question still remains: if you walk into most Muslim libraries, okay, and particular Shia libraries, okay, they're dominated by fiqh. All right, they're dominated by fiqh. So why is this the case? It's an extremely complex question. Yeah? You know, if we go back, if I employ one of my teachers' thesis in this regard, okay, because it's not just a problem regarding ibadat, okay, it's also a question of why has this juristic interpretation of religion, why is it so, we know it's not the only interpretation of Islam, okay, but I think your question is, why is it dominant? Yeah? Okay, I think we have to look through the history of Islam for this, okay, and I'm heavily relying on one of my teachers, Sayyid Fatimi's ideas in this regard. Okay, we have to look at the history of Muslims, right? And they were suddenly in a situation where, the Muslim lands grew so rapidly, okay, from the initial ummah of the Prophet, which we hope to talk about tomorrow, being a small city of Medina, okay, within 50, 60 years to be covering, almost, 3 continents, right? For unity and order, okay, we need law. Very, very simply. Okay, for unity and order, there's a requirement for law. All right, and historically we see that fiqh, okay, was very, very important and very, very valuable in retaining, okay, common identity for Muslims. All right, and which is the nature of law, actually. Yeah. So this is, it seems to me that part of the answer, okay, is purely a historical accident. Purely a historical accident. All right. Okay, it doesn't mean that all we have in our heritage is fiqh. And even through and it's not a modern approach to say, okay, we want to revise this. Okay, I'm not, in what I discussed here wasn't to undermine the importance of this formal validity. Okay, and the importance of the path. What I'm trying to emphasize is for us to get value, okay, from these regulations, we need to look below to their purpose. Okay, so I'm not trying to reject the importance of fiqh. Yeah, but what about this imbalance? Yeah, I think this historical factors are very, very important. Okay, but it's not just a modern situation that people are now trying to rebalance this. Look, throughout history, we've had people who have come to rebalance this issue. Okay, and to re-promote a reading of Islam which is emphasizing its spiritual and moral content. Not at the exclusion of fiqh, but alongside fiqh. What's the problem? Is when all we have on our reading shelf is Risala al-Amaliyah. Okay, Risala al-Amaliyah is something very, very important, very, very useful. The problem is when that's all we have. Okay, such that we can have a situation where our parents tell us, you need to do niyyah for this to be acceptable. But we don't have a clue what that really means. This is a problem. But there have been repeated efforts through history to revive these types of things. And often it's in times of crisis, okay, that you're asked to go back. And you need to go back. Yeah, and maybe we're in one of those times right now. It needs a lecture, a series of lectures. All right? But it's a very good, important question. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
So following on from the previous question, if I might be so bold as to venture a thesis, so we tend to prioritize the life of the Prophet and the ways he lived and his actions. So might it be the case that there are specific rules and stringent rules in the ways we perform salah and the wudu and everything else, because there is in fact embodied meaning in the actual act itself, that it is invalidated literally if you don't do it a certain way?
Yeah, quite possibly. I wouldn't completely disagree with the possibility, right? My concern is if one is oblivious, okay, to the purpose of these acts, okay, and not conscious of the central elements of those acts, yeah, we can more often than not miss their value. All right, and this is why I emphasize the question of salat per se. We're not talking about the elements of salat. Salah fundamentally is for God's remembrance. You can't get past that. Okay, the Quran is so explicit. Yeah, this is why, I've taken much of my talk today, certain elements of my talk, from Ghazali's Ihya Ulumuddin and Faiz Kashani's Muhjat al-Bayda. Okay, so you've got a Sunni scholar, okay, looking for a revival in religion, okay, because of his concerns against the fuqaha. All right, okay, saying that we've got too much of a juristic interpretation of religion. Okay, so we've got his work, yeah, which was then, if you like, edited by a Shia scholar, okay, Mullah Faith Kashani. All right, and we touched on some of the hadith, added ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. All right, now, Ghazali and Faith Kashani, endorses his comments in this regard. He says, all of the evidences you've got for these particular conditions of formal conditions, okay, don't come close to the strength of textual evidence you've got for these internal conditions. You can't get past the Quran's call to say salat is for God's attention, is to create attentiveness towards God. Right? So even if we observed all of the formal conditions of prayer, but we don't seek attentiveness of God through that prayer, okay, we seem to have missed the fundamental of it. Now, the whole discourse of fiqh is a means intending to take us towards the internal. All right, so the formal fiqh is of value, okay, if it takes us towards godliness and goodliness, if it takes us towards the purpose of those acts. All right, and so this is what we're trying to emphasize here, okay, that all of these things have potential value, right, but we are at risk. We're at risk of losing that value if they become empty rituals. And so this is what the general tone of my talk is for.
No, so I wouldn't dispute that at all. And what I'm saying is that there's the Prophet obviously chose a particular way to pray. It doesn't say in the Quran how to pray. It just says to. It just says exactly the sorts of things that you're saying. And so what I'm saying is that the reason that there are so many rules and so many strictures around prayer is because, in part, the purpose of prayer is, in fact, to pray the way we pray. Does that make sense? That you would.
No, I think we have to make we make a difference between, or at least I would. I don't think we have to. To me, there's a distinction between the method of something and the purpose of something. All right, two very, very different things. Okay. Now, method may be important in attaining something's purpose. Yes, agreed. All right. Yeah, and how are we praying? Of course, we're praying in a way which we assume the Prophet prayed. Yeah, this is another core feature of these devotional acts, is they're non-rational. I know some people get concerned when I start talking about rational versus religious and rational versus scriptural, okay? But these core devotional acts, they're non-rational. There's no rational reason why we shouldn't do these things. Okay, so we are complete devotion to the texts here. All right, we can submit to the text. even if we think it's only possible the Prophet prayed this way, because actually that's where we are. We don't know how the Prophet prayed. Okay, we're following, Ja'faris are following a way which we feel Imam Sadiq prayed. Okay, yeah, we're trying to observe a manner in which Imam Sadiq prayed, because we think he's a great shot of understanding the way the Prophet prayed. Okay, and arguably the best shot, okay, of understanding from that generation how the Prophet prayed. And to me, even if there's a chance the Prophet prayed in this way, I'm going to do it. Okay, so there I would agree with you. Yeah, okay, we wish to pray like the Prophet. But why? Why do we wish to pray like the Prophet? Because the Prophet's prayer made him the best of people. Okay, the Prophet's prayer made him rahmatun lil alameen. Okay, that Prophet's prayer epitomized the person who was God-centered, yeah, and became godly. Right, so it's a means. The Prophet's prayer is a means. There were people who prayed at the time of the Prophet behind the Prophet. They included Muawiyah. All right, so here we've got a question. Yeah, there were people who prayed the prayer of the Prophet in form. Okay, did it make them godly and God-centered? Clearly not. Okay, clearly not. We can see many examples. So I think we have to make a distinction between method and purpose. It seems to me anyway.
Any questions from sister side?
Is there any benefit, do you think, in just submission? So kind of following the form because it's a form of submission, if that makes sense, which would be potentially an argument against getting rid of form completely and just focusing on substance.
I'm not arguing for getting rid of form completely at all.
No,
I think the form is exceptionally important. Okay, and in devotional acts, even if it's only the possible form in which the Prophet prayed, I would go for it. Okay, to be honest with you. All right, so I think I've got to make myself very, very clear there. All right, yeah, but repeat your question again now. Sorry.
No, sorry. That's not what I took from what you were saying. But what I was trying to ask is there potentially an element
of pure submission,
of just pure submission, and is that potentially why?
Potentially, yes. Okay, pure devotion. There can be what we call maslaha. Okay, theoretically, there's the possibility that there is the potential of growth simply through devotion. Devotion for the sake of devotion. Okay? Yeah, but devotion for the sake of devotion may have benefit. So we're still talking about purpose. There still has to be a purpose. Okay, if the purpose of a particular, or if the rationale, for a particular act which the Prophet performed, and God asked the Prophet to perform, okay, was purely devotion, then this devotion must have purpose. Okay, so it still has to take us somewhere. Because if it didn't take us somewhere, then why is God doing it for his ego? Does God want us to devote ourselves for the sake of devotion simply to boost God's ego? No, God is needless. So if the objective is devotion, then in this devotion there must be value for us. There must be. Okay? Otherwise, we're undermining the conception of God being needless. So still we're talking about purpose. Yeah, and that devotion must still have an impact upon me in terms of growth or restraint, of breaking my base desires, making me a more holistic individual. Yeah.
So it seems to me that without a formal structure of the form, there will be so many interpretations of how to get to the substance.
Yes.
There will not be a unifying ethos, yeah? So I think one of the considerations is that if you remove or if you put down the importance of formal form, then you
have chaos.
Have people saying, okay, I pray in my heart,
yes.
I pray when I'm sitting, I do this. There is no formal structure. What we have now is that this formal rituals are universally recognizable across the Muslim world.
Yes.
It seems to me so there is a meta value to that form, apart from obviously the practice of the Prophet himself giving that particular form to the substance.
As I said, I've not been making an argument against the importance of form, okay, in religious duties. Yeah, and I'm saying even if there's a chance the Prophet and Imam Sadiq had a particular form, yeah, of practice, okay, I would attempt, in theory at least, okay, yeah, to try to observe that form, okay, unequivocally. All right. The problem comes, and you're pointing to the value. All right. You're pointing to the value, yeah, of unity. All right. And is there some meta benefit in this? Yeah, quite possibly. Unity being a major one. Consistency, opportunity for people who are unaware of the ritual benefits to be struck by the beauty. Okay. Sometimes it's when we're least conscious, okay, that we're open to being struck by the beauty of God. All right, so all those things are there. A problem comes, okay, when we lose the balance. Okay, where the balance is shifted to purely formal. And we lose sight of the fact that this practice of religion is meant to make me more godly, is meant to take me towards God, is meant to make me a better person, such that we can have people praying, fasting, reading the Quran, and surrounding the camp of Hussein ibn Ali. Okay? Stopping them from drinking water. Okay? And slaughtering them one by one. These guys had a much greater chance of following the form of the prayer of the Prophet than me and you do. Even though we have hadith attributed to Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq. Okay? So that balance is critical. And right now, where we're seeing religion being expressed as identity, where we're seeing discourse of Sharia, okay, I think it's an extremely important, pivotal message right now that we remember this religion, this path, is intended to take us towards being God-centered individuals, okay, as a means to becoming good, godly individuals.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Yesterday we talked about the master slave and the slave doing goodliness and becoming godly in the context of movement towards adopting the qualities of Allah, whereby the slave would become the master. Can you elaborate further on that?
Okay, so here it's not the master, a master, I said. Yeah? And yeah, this is my attempts to... no, it's taking on the qualities of God. Yeah, Rahmah is something beautiful. Okay, and it's a case of an opportunity towards self-expression. So if you link this to the other statements I made yesterday and alluded to today, okay, that Sharia or religion is aiming to help us fulfill our potential. And that potential is divine. Okay, we don't have this conception as some of our Christian brothers do have, okay, that the human is fundamentally flawed. All right, the conception of humankind, okay, in Muslim theology and in the Quran is something exceptionally beautiful. Look at Karamna al-Bani Adam, okay? We have honored humankind, yeah? Anfaqtu fihi min ruhi, yeah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with regards to Adam, I have breathed my spirit into him. Okay, so insan in this sense, okay, is something potentially beautiful. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We have created you in the best of forms. All right? So this is all potential. This is all potential to be godlike. All right? The only difference is, or the fundamental difference is, whatever we achieve is dependent upon God. Okay? Because He's the muntaha, as we said yesterday. Okay, وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. Everything depends upon God. It's a God-centered reality in existence. Okay, but within that framework, humankind has the opportunity to choose to direct themselves towards God and godliness and start to take on those qualities. Okay, start to take on, start to fulfill himself and herself. I hope that helps.
I'll take the final question from myself.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for your talk. I just had one question. I understand. Basically, what I wanted to ask is that, so we have obviously this form that's been prescribed, and this isn't just in Salah, but generally with regards to the way we perceive the Sunnah of the Prophet. There are. Do you think that there is inherent benefit in the specified actions of the Prophet? For example, if we take Salah as an example, do you think there's inherent benefit in the form itself? And with regard to other things that the Prophet may have done, is there inherent benefit in the fact that he did it exactly this way? In your opinion, does that have some kind of spiritual benefits that at our level perhaps it's difficult to understand what that benefit may be, even if it's something is, for example,
mundane as wearing my trousers in a particular way, or brushing with a particular type of toothbrush. It's an exceptionally important question, okay? And one of the reasons why I structured these talks in the way I have, okay? Everything is potentially a means towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? All right, but ultimately the only real end is Allah, okay? So everything has to be assessed with that in mind. Everything. Okay, Anna ila rabbikal muntaha. Everything's end is God. Alright, and we said this is both in a causal sense and in terms of effect. Okay, now if we then go to look at the life of the Prophet, we say yes, for sure. Okay, there's the possibility that every single thing he did was a means towards godliness and goodliness. Yeah, our question now has to be, is this still a means to godliness and goodliness? Because that's the objective. Okay? So yes, we have to be open to the possibility. And this is why I said that if it's textual and there's no rational reason against it, fine, we can go with the text. No problem at all. Yeah? But with full consciousness that this is intended to move me somewhere. My pursuit is for the goal. It's not the form. It's not the means. And this has become a big problem. This has been a big problem, okay, amongst modern Muslim movements. Yeah, arguably this is a modern phenomenon. Again, linked to concerns of identity and numerous complex factors. All right, okay, so we've got to be very careful in the way we appraise the Sunnah. It's not straightforward. Yeah, some things are very clear and very obvious. Yeah, okay, and keeping in mind this goal, okay, of godliness and goodliness, the Sharia is purposeful, can help us in our observance of the received form, okay, to try and achieve those ends. Yeah, because as I just said previously, right, we could have exactly the same form and it can lead us in two opposite directions. And we've seen that through history. In a sense, we could say this whole Karbala paradigm, we can reduce it to that. Okay, there were people at the time of the Prophet who did exactly the same thing, okay, arguably hypocritically, or, later on, they were observing the same form. So did that inherit some mystical value? What happened to it? Did it automatically make them good people? Yeah, I think history would tell us it's not the case. Yeah, and would push us to say that no, we have to look to the value of Sharia, and remember that Sharia is purposeful and is meant to make us more godly and make us more goodly. I know I'm repeating my core message, but it's quite intentional actually. Thank you for the question though. Yeah?
Thank you very much. I think we'll end there. Salawat.